I've always had an affinity for the bizarre, the unexplained mysteries that lurk in the shadows of our seemingly ordinary world. My name is Jack, a private detective specializing in the peculiar cases that others shy away from. On a dreary Thursday morning, as the city still slumbered under a blanket of fog, an envelope slid under my door, breaking the monotonous silence of my office. I quickly opened my door to see who it was. "Oh, I didn't think you were in, Jack. Wanted to slip this in before I head off to my appointment," my assistant Hillary said to me. Hillary was a fresh college graduate, 20 years old. I was never sure why she wanted to work in a dark, dingy detective's office, especially with a bright future ahead of her. Maybe it was the mysterious cases that intrigued her. "Oh, okay, Hillary, well, thanks. I'll see you later," I said as I picked up the envelope and put it aside. It was a thin, nondescript envelope. Inside lay a single sheet of paper, the words typed in an old-fashioned font that spoke of urgency and secrecy. "Mary Sue, schoolgirl, died 20 years ago. Mysterious circumstances. Closed case. Worth your time." That was it. No signature, no return address, just a cryptic message that reeked of hidden truths and veiled threats. Mary Sue's case wasn't unfamiliar to me. It was like one of those urban legends that festered in the city's underbelly. A tale whispered in hushed tones. A 16-year-old girl found dead in her school, her death shrouded in enigma, the case going cold as quickly as it happened. 20 years had passed since then, and the world had all but forgotten Mary Sue. But her story, it seemed, wasn't ready to be buried just yet. I knew it was more than just a cold case. It was a calling, a beckon to unravel a truth that should have seen the light decades ago. The school where Mary Sue passed away had been shut down shortly after her death. Last I remember reading about it was when the city had deemed it a condemned structure. I guess parents had complained about several structural issues, notwithstanding the death of a student, of course. My first instinct was to visit this forsaken place, to walk where Mary Sue had walked, to see what had been left unseen. I had nothing else on the agenda, so I decided no time's better than the present. As I drove towards the school, the city's cacophony faded into an eerie silence. The building loomed in the distance, its once proud structure now a decaying carcass. Ivy crept up its walls as if nature itself was trying to conceal its dark past. Stepping inside, I was greeted by a gust of wind, a sigh from the past, stirring up dust and memories. The corridors were lined with lockers, their colors faded, their metal bodies rusted and contorted in grotesque shapes. Classrooms gaped open, their empty desks a testament to the lives that had been interrupted. I walked through the desolate halls, my footsteps echoing, a steady rhythm in the heart of this dead place. There was a palpable tension in the air, a sense of unease that clung to my skin. I could feel the weight of the untold story, pressing down on me with each step I took deeper into the school. It was in the gymnasium where I first felt it. A sudden drop in temperature, a whisper in the stillness. The basketball hoops hung limply, their nets frayed and torn. I shivered, not from the cold, but from the realization that I was not alone. "Mary Sue?" I whispered into the void, half expecting an answer, but there was nothing. Just the echo of my own voice, bouncing off the walls of this forgotten place. I guess the investigation had just begun. I knew that this case was unlike any other I'd taken before. Mary Sue's story was supposed to be a puzzle, but I was determined to piece it together. The eerie stillness of the gymnasium lingered as I ventured further into the school. Each room seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for a secret to be unearthed. I found myself in the library, a vast room with towering shelves, now hosting cobwebs and dust more than books. It was here, amidst the silent tones, that I stumbled upon the first real clue. A newspaper clipping, yellowed with age, peered out from an old book on local history. The headline screamed of the tragedy, Local schoolgirl found dead under mysterious circumstances. Below was a picture of Mary Sue, her eyes full of life, a stark contrast to the grim story she headlined. The article mentioned little else of note, but it was a handwritten note on the back that caught my attention. Joanne knows more than she says. Ask her about the ritual. Joanne? The name was vaguely familiar. I pulled out my phone and did a quick search online, and I think I'd found her. Joanne Simon, a teacher at the school when Mary Sue died. But what was this about a ritual? My curiosity piqued. I pocketed the clipping and made a mental note to visit Joanne Simon. Exiting the library, a sudden chill ran down my spine. The temperature had dropped significantly, and I could see my breath in the air. It was unnatural, especially for this time of year. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, and every shadow seemed to dance just outside the corner of my eye. Determined to not let my imagination get the better of me, I pressed on, making my way to the principal's office. The door creaked ominously as I pushed it open, revealing a room frozen in time, dust-laden trophies, faded photographs of smiling students, and a large imposing desk at the center. It was on this desk that I found the second clue, a locked drawer. The lock was old and rusty, and it gave way easily under the pressure of my makeshift lockpick. Inside there was a collection of documents, school reports, letters, and a particularly intriguing sealed envelope addressed to the principal from Joanne Simon. With a sense of urgency, I tore open the envelope. The letter inside was written in a hurried scrawl, its contents making my heart race. I can't keep this secret any longer. What have we done? We've unleashed something terrible. I fear for our lives. The letter ended abruptly, as if Joanne had been interrupted while writing it. Unleashed something terrible? What did she mean? I felt a growing unease about the nature of this case. It was no longer just a simple investigation into a cold case. It felt something much darker and more dangerous. As nightfall approached, the school seemed to grow more menacing, the shadows deeper, the silence more oppressive. Deciding it was best to continue my investigation in the daylight, I made my way out, the weight of the day's discoveries heavy on my mind. Driving back to my office, the city lights did little to dispel the darkness that had settled over me. As I drove, Joanne's note churned in my mind. How had the police missed such an obvious clue? The mention of Joanne Simon and her ritual was a glaring lead. It begged the question of whether the investigation had been thorough, or if something, or someone, had led it astray. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, but with each piece, the picture it was forming was becoming increasingly more curious. Tomorrow, I would seek out Joanne Simon. Perhaps she held the key to unraveling this mystery. But for tonight, I would try to rest, unaware that sleep would be a stranger to me, haunted by the ghost of Mary Sue and the secrets that whispered in the shadows. The morning dawned with a grey overcast, reflecting the somber mood that had taken hold of me. My mission for the day was clear: to seek out Joanne Simon, the teacher entwined in the mystery of Mary Sue's untimely death. The anticipation of what secrets she might hold made my heart race as I navigated the city's sleepy streets. Joanne resided in a quaint neighborhood, where the houses whispered stories of the past. Her home was a modest ivy-clad structure at the end of a cobblestone lane. With each step towards her door, the weight of 2 decades of silence seemed to press down on me. I knocked, a sound echoing in the quiet street. The door opened to reveal an elderly woman, her eyes reflecting a life of untold stories. Joanne Simon, despite her age, possessed an air of unresolved mystery. "Mr. Jack, I presume?" she inquired, her voice a mix of caution and curiosity. Her knowing my name before I introduced myself sent a shiver down my spine. Inside her living room, time seemed to have stood still, each object a relic of a life lived under the shadow of a dark past. "I know why you're here," Joanne stated, her eyes briefly flitting to a picture on the mantelpiece. It showed her with Mary Sue, both smiling, a stark contrast to the grim reality that unfolded later. Her acknowledgement of my investigation into Mary Sue's death raised more questions than answers. As she spoke, her narrative was cautious, revealing little, yet hinting at much. "There are things about that day that never made it to light," Joanne said, her gaze distant. "The truth about Mary Sue's death is not what it seems." Her words were measured, each one carefully chosen. She spoke of the day Mary Sue died, describing an unsettling atmosphere at the school, of whispers, of occult practices among a certain circle of teachers, herself included. However, she stopped short of admitting any direct involvement. "It was a time of curiosity, of delving into the unknown, but some doors, once opened, cannot be closed," she said cryptically. When I pressed her about the ritual mentioned in the note, her expression hardened. "There were rumors, speculations, but nothing concrete. I can't tell you more. It's a chapter of my life I've long since closed." Her reluctance to divulge details was frustrating, to say the least. Yet, it painted a picture of a woman burdened by a past she wished to forget. It was clear that Joanne held secrets, but she was not ready to reveal them. Not yet, at least. As I left her house, the sky seemed to mirror the tumultuous thoughts swirling in my mind. Joanne's partial revelations had added layers to the mystery, hinting at hidden depths and dark secrets yet to be uncovered. Her veiled references to occult practices and her evident fear of delving into those memories suggested a sinister backdrop to Mary Sue's death. The questions multiplied in my mind as I walked back to my office. What was the true nature of the occult practices at the school? How deeply was Joanne involved? And most importantly, what was she holding back? The case was deepening, drawing me into a labyrinth of secrets and lies. I knew that the answers I sought lay buried under years of silence and fear. Uncovering them would require delving into the darkest corners of this mystery, corners that some like Joanne were desperate to keep hidden. The path ahead was fraught with shadows, but I was determined to bring the truth into the light, no matter how unsettling it might be. The next morning, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Joanne's veiled words and the haunted look in her eyes suggested a deeper, more ominous truth. I decided to revisit the abandoned school, convinced that it held the key to understanding the complex web of secrets surrounding Mary Sue's death. As I made my way through the city's misty streets towards the abandoned school, I noticed an old man sitting on a bench nearby, his gaze lost in the distance. Something about him seemed out of place, a relic of a bygone era. He caught my eye and nodded, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between us. I approached, curiosity getting the better of me. "You seem to know this place," I remarked, gesturing towards the school. He chuckled dryly. "You could say that. Carl Henderson's the name. Used to be on the force. I've seen things that would make your skin crawl, especially about that school." His eyes held a depth of knowledge and a hint of sorrow. "Like what, Carl?" I asked with concern. "Listen to me. You need to stop looking into this. Whatever you're doing, stop," Carl screamed at me with a concerned look on his face. "What? Why? Why did the investigation stop, Carl?" I asked. Carl did not respond and hurried off, mumbling something about demons and rituals. I attempted to chase him, but lost track of him as he turned around a corner. "Back to the school, I guess. I'll worry about Carl later." The school stood desolate, a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. As I walked through its corridors, the eerie silence was overwhelming. It was as if the very air was charged with the whispers of the past, each step echoing in the emptiness. In the dim light, I made my way to Mary Sue's locker, untouched since that fateful day. The rusted lock gave away with little resistance, revealing a time capsule of a teenager's life. Notebooks, a few personal belongings, and, surprisingly, a small leather-bound diary. The diary was a window into Mary Sue's world, her thoughts and fears penned down in her delicate handwriting. Flipping through the pages, I found entries about her school life, her dreams, and more intriguingly, her growing unease in the weeks leading up to her death. "Something strange is happening at school," one entry read. "Whispers in the corridors, teachers acting weird. I feel like I'm being watched." Another entry sent chills down my spine. "I overheard Miss Simon talking about a ritual. She sounded scared. I don't know what's going on, but I'm afraid." Mary Sue's words painted a picture of a school gripped by secretive activities, and a girl caught in the middle of something she didn't understand. It was becoming increasingly clear that her death was entwined with something much more sinister. As night began to fall, casting long shadows through the broken windows, I felt a growing sense of unease. The school seemed to come alive in the darkness, each creak and whisper magnifying my anxiety. It was in the science lab where I encountered the next clue. Amidst the dusty beakers and old textbooks, I found a hidden compartment under a loose floorboard. Inside there was an old photograph and a set of documents that looked like ritualistic instructions. The photograph was a group of people, their faces partially obscured by the flickering light of the candles. In the center stood Joanne Simon, her expression one of fear and fascination. The documents detailed a ritual, with references to summoning and control, a ritual that seemed to align with what Joanne had hinted at and what Mary Sue had written in her diary. Suddenly the air turned cold, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. A feeling of being watched, of a presence in the room, enveloped me. I felt an overwhelming urge to leave, to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the school. As I hurried through the corridors, lost in thought, a voice startled me. "They never wanted to solve it, you know." "Carl?" I said, surprised with my heart beating out of my chest. Over a coffee in a nearby diner, Carl spoke in hushed tones. There was pressure from above to wrap it up quickly, to label it an unsolved tragedy and move on, he confessed. Evidence like the note you found. It was either overlooked or intentionally ignored. There was a talk about powerful people involved, the kind you don't cross. His words sent a chill down my spine, hinting at a conspiracy that ran deeper than I had imagined. The possibility that the police had been influenced or pressured added a sinister layer to an already dark case. Leaving the diner, I took a moment to catch my breath, my mind racing with the new revelations, the diary, the photograph, the ritualistic documents, a botched investigation. They all pointed to a sinister truth behind Mary Sue's death, a truth that someone had gone to great lengths to keep hidden. As I walked back to my office, the city lights flickered like distant stars, oblivious to the darkness that I had just witnessed. The mystery of Mary Sue's death was unraveling, revealing a narrative far more complex and chilling than I could have imagined, but I was determined to uncover the whole truth, no matter how disturbing it might be. Echoes in the hallways of the abandoned school were a reminder that some secrets refused to stay buried.